Yo friend, in this video I wanted to cover my absolute must-have items for van life off-roading, all the way from the basic of the basic, what I would include in that kit, to some of the more advanced items that are a bit more of an investment. Let's cover my first item. I recommend anybody that plans to drive off the road with their camper van has a tire deflator. What this device does is you connect it to the valve on your tire, you remove the valve core, and that allows you to rapidly remove air from your wheels while also simultaneously measuring how much air you have left. Airing down your tires is by far the quickest way to improve traction on your vehicle. If you're getting stuck or you're wanting to drive an area where you might get stuck, airing down is crucial. When we were driving in here to this camp spot yesterday, we almost got stuck right there. And instead of just driving the tires into the sand, I just went out, aired down my wheels, and we drove through no problem. Prior to having a tire deflator, I'd use a stick poking at my valve stem, trying to remove the air. And if your tires have 80 PSI, getting them down to 20 PSI, that can take a very long time. So I'd get impatient, I'd say, that's good enough. And inevitably, most cases, it wasn't good enough and we'd get ourselves more stuck. And I'll share links to everything that we look over today. And also, if you have your own personal recommendations of something that's worked well for you, drop that in the comments. And I'll have a document in the description that I'll try to update with some of the recommendations that we're getting from people in the comments. Next up, if you're gonna be deflating your tires, you need an easy way to reinflate them. You definitely want a reliable pump if you're gonna be airing down the wheels of your van. Most of the little pumps that you can get at a department store aren't gonna be adequate enough for long duty cycling that it takes to re-air the tires on a van like this up to their full PSI. My go-to brand for pumps is Viair. There are no bells and whistles, all the fittings just work, they're as simple as possible, and they're really good at just pumping air. This is one of their heavier duty, larger models with a compressor style fitting for airing up RVs or sprinter vans, so you can easily add an air gun just like this one with an easily readable PSI gauge. They also have a smaller model than this one, which is totally adequate without the compressor style fittings, and that one's really robust as well. By far the best portable mini pump that I've ever bought. And something to consider here is whatever pump you get, make sure you get leads that can directly attach to the battery. If you go for one with that cigarette style barrel connector and you run it in your van, the amount of time that it needs to run to inflate your tires, that connection point is actually gonna get really, really hot, and there's a good chance you're gonna melt some plastic and it's gonna be no fun. So skip all of that, get one with battery leads that you can just connect right underneath your hood when your van is running. Last item in the basic kit is a tow strap. These have a bit of stretch to them, so that way if a vehicle is towing you out of a scenario, it kind of has this elastic effect as they can sort of slingshot you out of however you got yourself stuck. Bonus points if you've got a shackle to help attach it to different points on the vehicle, or an extra hitch pin, so that way you can put this loop through your hitch, put the pin in. That's a great tow point for either someone that's gonna pull you out or attaching it on your own vehicle. This stuff right here is the absolute basics. I never travel without this stuff. After a basic kit, my next go-to purchase would be a small shovel and some traction boards. I went with some cheaper version ones than the MaxTrax name brand ones. Something to consider there is that they might crack under the weight of your van. So think of them as 1 to 3 times use, depending on what surfaces you're using them on. And then obviously the shovel, if you get stuck and no one else is around, you can dig out around your wheels and actually get the MaxTrax down in there as close as possible. So that way, as you start driving, they kind of slip in underneath there. And I would say having 4 on a van is super helpful, but 2 at a minimum. You can get yourself out of a lot of situations with some patience and some MaxTrax to just inch yourself out of being stuck. When considering upgrades to your van itself, I highly, highly recommend buying new tires. My go-to are the BFG KO2s. Those are kind of a staple in the driving on road and capable off-road category. They work really well on vans because they can hold up to the heavier weight class, but they do give you that added benefit when you want to drive off-road and you need some traction. My experience with these tires has been absolutely fantastic. We've gotten 4 years out of our first set, just put a brand new set on. I'm pretty happy with them. I've got a video showing the largest that you can fit on sprinter vans without modifying them, so if you want to check that out. But I recommend these guys. There are some other options out there. These are a little on the pricier side, kind of considering, but I think the value is worth it. And I also cannot speak highly enough of doing upgraded suspension on your van. It's kind of like a safety issue to me now, because most people, the way they build out their DIY vans, they're making them so heavy, myself included, and it almost makes it a road hazard going down the highway maxed out at its GVW with the stock suspension that's just not meant to be maxed out 24/7. So get some new suspension. It will blow your mind. The folks over at Van Compass, I'm a happy customer of theirs because they tune them specifically for the heavier weight of vans. You tell them your weight, they get them tuned. It's amazing. And consider getting a pair of reservoir suspension so you can actually dial in the compression. If you're driving off-road, you want more supple moving wheels than if you're driving on a highway where you want sturdy confidence. That feeling when you're driving around a mountain highway and the wind's blowing and you're kind of white knuckling it because it feels like all micro movements of your steering matters. The confidence you get from suspension that can actually counteract the van as it's blowing on a highway while you're steering in a corner is amazing. I've got a whole video on suspension, so I definitely recommend checking that out. A consideration for winter driving is which chains are you gonna get. With a two-wheel drive van that has a slip differential, snow can sometimes just be the absolute worst. You can get stuck in a parking lot. So getting good chains is crucial. And these chains are absolutely fantastic because they're low profile. So if you're gonna put bigger wheels on your Sprinter van than what's on their stock, sometimes you lose some of that wheel height, and putting on a full set of heavy duty chains, those are gonna slap around and wreck your van. These have been a great investment. They're really easy to put on. I wish I'd bought them sooner. Even if you're not gonna get new chains, definitely try to get one of these elastic devices for pulling the chain around your tire for a more snug fit. That's just gonna definitely ensure that you don't bash up your vehicle by running chains. I wanna show you my winching setup here in a moment, but I forgot to talk about two pretty important things. And I would just say, hey, probably take a first aid kit with you when you're going out into the bush. The second thing I want to mention is that most tool brands have their own tire inflator that you can get that some people really seem to love. So I got the DeWalt one because that's the battery of tool brand that I have, and then I'll report back how it develops. I'll probably update the description down below. Some benefits of a unit like this is that you can clearly just move it around and it's portable, and then it also auto shuts off once you hit a certain PSI. You can run it off batteries or a DC cable that will go into here. It doesn't charge the battery when plugged in, which is kind of stupid to me. So one of these units might be a good investment for you, especially if you want to pump up things like air mattresses or stand-up paddle boards or things like that. It's nice supplemental air pressure filling up, but I don't know if I'd want to be doing my airing up from air down regularly with a unit like this. It pairs nicely with this DeWalt mini shop vac that we take everywhere for getting sand out of our van. Also runs off these batteries. I really, really like this vacuum. I also want to take a quick moment to give you a tip for your freelancing career or whatever kind of business you want to launch or idea you want to get out there. And that is brought to you by the sponsor of this video, and that is Squarespace. So they have a wonderful website building platform with beautiful templates that make it really easy to get a website started. And this is where the tip comes in. I highly recommend, if you're going to launch a film, if you're going to launch a new product, if you're going to launch a podcast, whatever it is that you're going to launch, set up one of their blocks to do a newsletter form and collect email addresses from people who might be interested in this thing that you're launching. Then you're not at the mercy of the algorithms on social media websites. You can just message people directly. Head on over to Squarespace, use one of their templates, and if you run into any issues, they've got 24/7 award-winning support, so they're gonna get you sorted out and learn whatever it is that you're trying to do with your website or customize or just anything like that. They've got domains there, everything there. Squarespace is an excellent service, and I highly recommend trying it out. When you're ready to commit, make sure you use my code for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Let's chat bumpers, winches, and lights. In most every use case, having a full front bumper is completely and entirely unnecessary, unless you want some of that added protection of a deer lodging itself in your radiator on the highway. But the main reason why I built a bumper is so that way we could have this hitch point right here. I made a whole video series building out and fabricating this bumper if you want to watch that. But this hitch point is the main reason why I did that, and added a subframe structure to attach to the main vehicle. So we have a really sturdy point to pull the van off of or to attach a winch to. The tow hook on the front of these unibody vans are really not that great. Van Compass also makes a low profile front hitch attachment for some of the newer vans. So if I had one of those, I would definitely consider looking at it for adding a front hitch to your van. Okay, so this is our tray mounted winch, which basically means we can put it in any hitch that's available. So not only can we run it off our own front bumper, we can run it off the back bumper. We went with a 9.5 XP from Warren. And having a winch like this definitely makes it feel just that extra little bit of insurance. If nobody else is around, no cell service, you actually have some more tools in your toolbox to get yourself unstuck. And unfortunately, with a rear wheel drive van with a slip differential that we can't lock out, we do actually end up getting stuck in minor ways pretty frequently. And if we just fought it over and over again, we would dig ourselves in and make it even more difficult to get recovered. So having this winch oftentimes just gives it that extra little tug out of some very simple spots that most 4x4s would have no problem with. But because we're so heavy and it's just not great with traction, we need every little help that we can get sometimes. I highly recommend whatever kind of winch setup you're going for, just put out the extra cash right at the start and don't get a cable, get a synthetic line. Synthetic line is stronger, holds up better to abuse over time, and handling it is just so easy. You don't get those rat's nests and burrs that you do with cable, and it's, once you go synthetic, it's hard to go back. It is expensive though. You always want weighted protection on the line itself, because if your connection point fails and it comes flying at you, that's a lot of metal moving pretty quickly. I'm holding my battery monitor in my hand here just so I can see how many amps it's pulling, because I'm kind of curious. That really wasn't working the winch that hard. So the max we pulled is 160 amps, which is a lot of power, but not crazy amount of power. Usually with a Sprinter van, you want at least a 12K winch. I'm getting away with a 9.5 here, especially if you do what we're about to show, which is putting a pulley in your setup and really leveraging mechanical advantage for the most pulling force. Let's get the van a little more stuck this time. Well, that's a little dug in. And over here is what we're gonna do next, where we winch off of a pulley and then come back to the vehicle. So it's pulling right down through there. And the mechanical advantage you get by using a pulley is just awesome. Getting that mechanical advantage is massive. So even if you're gonna winch off of another person's vehicle, I still recommend putting a pulley in between, just leveraging that up one step. I'm gonna do another pull, putting the van into neutral here. Normally, if you're doing this, you'd have someone in the driving seat giving it a little bit of gas. You don't wanna be spinning those tires, but having the drivetrain actually help you here is usually what you would do if you were actually really stuck. We're just sort of pretend stuck. I would love to hear what's in your go-to off-road kit. I'll put together a compilation in the description of some of my favorites that come up. There's variants on everything that we were showing here today from different brands. I'll try to, if there's a common other good option that comes forward that I haven't had experience of, I'll try to add that in there.
And we've put together this really helpful van road trip checklist for free down below. Check in the description, sign up for a newsletter, and you can get that.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little intimidating planning your first van trip, and we've certainly come a long way. So we share some of our lessons there, and that's all an excerpt from our larger van road trip guide that we're putting together. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, we got some free resources down below.
Check it out.
Love to have you around. Thanks for watching this video.
And remember,
life's better when you make stuff. That was pretty in sync. That was good. There's always that little bit of nervousness as we get there at the end.
Who's gonna say it?
Is Janelle gonna say it with me? Am I gonna say that?